Welcome students to the most awaited topic in the series of functions in Python, and that is function styles. In the last lecture we were discussing the ways of invoking a function and what were the different parts of a program when it includes a function in its body or in the program. Then I also told you about the function of return statement, and then we are ready to learn the styles in which a function can be expressed in the language Python. Basically, a function in Python can be written in 4 styles whose names are mentioned in front of you, and these 4 styles of writing the function are actually based on 2 parameters. First is whether the function is returning the result or not. Means whether the function is printing the result on its own or is returning the result back to the caller function. Okay, and second basis is whether it is receiving any parameters or not. You know what are parameters? Parameters are the variables which are present in function header, and they are used means they are the variables upon which the function operates and produces the result. So whether your function is receiving parameters or not, and whether the result obtained after performing the work of function, or you can say the result produced after implementing function body, that result is getting returned from the function or is getting printed directly in the function itself. Okay, so these are the 2 parameters with the help of which these 4 categories or 4 styles of defining the functions are designed. Okay, the first one is void with no arguments, which is also called no argument, no return. See, void, the word void means empty. Okay, and this means the function will not return any result. Clear? So whenever in the style of the function you have void, this means that the function will not return anything. Clear? And whenever the function is non-void, means the function will return the result. Whatever result it has computed from the function body, the result will be returned by the function. Then no arguments, some arguments. This means that the function, if it is no arguments, means it is not receiving any parameters. The function is not receiving any of the parameters. It will take the input of the variables upon which it has to operate by itself. Okay, and in case of some arguments, means the function header wants some parameters whose values must be sent by the function call statement whenever it is made. Clear? So again, no argument, no argument, and some argument. So if I talk about it together, void with no argument means result will not be returned and parameters will not be received. Second is void with some argument means result will not be returned but parameters will be received. Non-void with no arguments means result will be returned but it will not receive any of the parameters from the function call. Fourth one is non-void with some arguments means the function will return the result and it will also receive the parameters. Now you have to focus upon each of these styles in details, and I will take up example of each style. Means I will take a common program and I'll express that function in all the 4 ways. And you will see that there are 3 basic works that a function has to perform. First is input, second is process, and third is output. Okay, so input and output, these will be divided among the caller and the called functions, but the work of processing will always be done by the function. Now what does this mean? This will be clear to you when we discuss these 4 styles in detail. Clear? See children, understanding these four styles of writing a function will be very easy for you if you relate it with some real life example. So I am taking up an example of real life here, and we'll connect the working of these functions or the four styles of writing the function with that example. Now my example is that suppose there is a tailor shop, okay, and one person is there who is the owner of the shop, okay, and that person has employed an employee who is expert at stitching shirts, right? Now that employee has been kept for stitching the shirts. So the work of stitching the shirt is the whole sole responsibility of that employee only. What will vary is whether I give the raw material to the employee and then ask him to stitch the shirt and then take back the result, or I ask him to purchase the raw material by himself and then stitch the shirt and then return the result. So there are two important things. Like I told, input, process, output. Here the process is to stitch the shirt. So whatever be the kind of interaction between the owner and the employee, the work of stitching the shirt will be done by the employee only in every style. Clear? But what will vary? That whether the owner gives the raw material to the employee or not, and whether the employee after stitching the shirt returns the shirt to the owner or not. Like I told that these four function styles are based on whether you give the parameter to the function or not and whether the function returns the result to you or not. Clear? So, and this example will be related with these functions when I discuss them. Okay. So, talking about the first function style means no argument, no return. Means neither the owner of the shop is going to give the raw material to the employee, nor he is going to take the shirt back after getting stitched. All the responsibility of purchasing the raw material, then stitching the shirt, and then using that shirt or utilizing that shirt is the whole sole responsibility of that employee only. And what owner has to do? Owner has to just pass the order to the employee that you now stitch the shirt. Clear? So see here, what is happening? My function is not receiving any of the parameters. Okay, that is why it is no argument, means nothing will be sent to this function when it will be called. And second is, this function will compute the result, and then after computing the result, it is not going to return the result. It is simply going to print the result by itself. Okay, so for making you understand this these function styles, I have taken up a very simple program, and that is to add two numbers input by user using a function named sum. Now I am going to define this function sum, whose basic purpose is to add two numbers. Okay, so adding the two numbers will be the responsibility of this function only, but whether those two numbers are given by the caller or not, and whether the result produced by this function will be returned to the caller or not, this is going to be different in these four function styles. So no argument, no return means neither the function will be given the two numbers upon which it has to perform the work of addition, nor after performing the result, after performing the addition, it is going to return the added or return the sum of those two numbers back to the place where it was called. So you can see this function style. This is the portion of main program, right? And this is function body. See, this is function body, this is main program, and this is function header. Okay, now pay attention towards it. The first one is that how this program will be executed. You know that whenever a program is executed, the first statement that gets executed is the function header, but this is only checked syntactically. you straight away jump to the main program. Okay, now this function call statement is there, means this some function has been invoked to perform its work, but nothing is sent. So what will this function do? It will take the input of a and b by itself, क्योंकि आप तो फंक्शन कॉल स्टेटमेंट तो उसे ए और बी की वैल्यू दे नहीं रहा है, तो ये इनपुट लेने का काम किसका हुआ? फंक्शन का ही हुआ. तो फंक्शन ने दोनों वैल्यूज का इनपुट लिया. देन आफ्टर it performed the work of processing. Now see, this is processing. This was input. These two statements were indicating input. Clear? And this is the work of processing. Means the two numbers are added and the result is stored in S. Okay. Now after this, see, it is printing the result itself. मतलब end user को result ये function ही खुद दे देगा. तो ये रिजल्ट जो है फंक्शन से वापस नहीं गया, यहाँ पे इस फंक्शन ने खुद ही रिजल्ट प्रिंट कर दिया. सो दिस इज द वर्क ऑफ आउटपुट. सो यू कैन सी इन दिस केस ऑफ फंक्शन स्टाइल, इनपुट प्लस आउटपुट, इनपुट प्लस प्रोसेसिंग प्लस आउटपुट, all these are the responsibility of function only. Means only function is only going to perform these all the three tasks, these tasks. ठीक है. Now second function style is no argument with return. Now this means that nothing will be provided to the function. Okay, but after calculating the result will be returned to the person who made a call to this function. If I relate it with my example, this time the owner of the shop is not going to give any raw material to the employee. He simply says to the employee, you stitch the shirt and give the result back to me. So if the owner is not providing the raw material to the employee, then it is the responsibility of the employee to purchase the raw material and then stitch the shirt. रॉ मटेरियल तो चाहिए ही ना शर्ट स्टिच करने के लिए, तो जब ओनर नहीं दे रहा है तो वो रॉ मटेरियल खुद ही परचेज करेगा. ठीक है. नाउ ही हैज परचेज द रॉ मटेरियल, मींस इट हैज टेकन द इनपुट, देन इट हैज स्टिच द शर्ट, मींस इट हैज कैलकुलेटेड द सम ऑफ ए एंड बी, एंड देन आफ्टर कैलकुलेटिंग द रिजल्ट एंड स्टोरिंग इट इन एस, द रिजल्ट इज बीइंग रिटर्न्ड बैक टू द कॉलर and which will be received in the variable p. Clear? So this time हमने एम्प्लॉय को दिया कुछ नहीं, लेकिन उससे शर्ट स्टिच करवा के रिजल्ट वापस ले लिया. तो इनपुट लेने का काम फंक्शन ने किया, प्रोसेस करने का काम भी फंक्शन ने किया, लेकिन प्रोड्यूस्ड रिजल्ट को प्रिंट करने का काम फंक्शन ने नहीं किया. Who did this work? After performing input and processing, this function simply returned the result back to the owner. अब देखिए किसने इसको कॉल किया था? Some function was called by the main program. This is the main program. I have already told you the parts of program. That is why I already told you earlier that this is the main program. Okay. So main is the caller. So some function was called. Some function took the input by itself, processed, and return the result back to the main. So returned result will replace this statement, and this statement will become like p is equal to s, and then the value of s will be copied over p, and then the ultimate sum will be printed by the main program, means the caller of the function. So now it is the responsibility of the caller to handle the returned result. Means अब एम्प्लॉय ने शर्ट स्टिच करके ओनर को वापस कर दी. अब दिस इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द ओनर व्हाट टू डू विद दैट शर्ट, वेदर टू वेयर इट हिमसेल्फ और टू गिव इट टू समवन एल्स. क्लियर? सो दीज आर द फर्स्ट टू स्टाइल्स ऑफ एक्सप्रेसिंग अ फंक्शन, एंड नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस द नेक्स्ट टू स्टाइल्स. बट वन थिंग टू नोटिस हियर, दैट इनपुट what all responsibilities were carried out by the function? Only the work of input and processing. The work of giving output was not the responsibility of the function. Clear? Now let's start the next two styles. Then the next two function styles are with argument, no return, with argument, with return. Now here this means with argument means that the function will receive the parameters upon which it will perform the work of addition. Okay, so in both these cases the parameter list is not empty, you can see. Okay, and no return means the function will not return the result, it will print the result by itself, and here the function will return the computed result. Now if I connect it with my example, then in this case the owner is going to give the raw material to the employee in both the cases. Okay, so purchasing the work of means purchasing raw material, this work is not the responsibility of the employee right now, it is the work of the owner. In the same way, A and B will be provided to the function by the caller, that is the main program, and the work of addition and then handling the result is the work of function. Now see, in this case with argument no return means function will receive the parameters but will not return the result. So if the result is not being returned, the result will be printed by the function itself. So see here, this is the main program. So first the input of x is taken from the user, then the input of y is taken from the user, and then this main program is calling sum function and sending x and y, because the sum function requires two parameters. So x is sent for A and y is sent for B. Now A and B will get the value, result of sum will be calculated, and see the function is itself printing the result. So here the work of input is done by the main program, not by the function. The work of processing is done by the function, and the work of output is also done by the function. So in this style of function, what is the responsibility of function? Processing plus output. Only this work will be performed by the function. Now see the next function style, with argument, with return. This means that the function will neither will be given the raw material also, and the function will return the result also. That is, in this case the owner is going to provide the raw material to the employee. Employee is going to stitch the shirt, and then employee is going to return the shirt back to the owner. Clear? So input will be done by owner, processing by function, that is the employee, and output again by the owner. So look here, this is taking input of x and y from user. So the work of input is done by the main program, who is the caller function here. Now the function sum is called, x is sent to A and y is sent to B. So A and B get the value. Only the work of processing is done by the function, and see it is returning the result. Now this returned result will go back and reach this place, and it will replace this function call statement. So the statement will internally become P is equal to S, then S will be copied on P and the sum will be printed. So see, only the work of processing is done by the function. Input by main program, output by main program. So in this case function is only performing the work of processing. So now you can see that in all these four styles, only the duties of taking input and giving the output are divided among the caller and the called, but the work of processing is done by the function only. Like I told you that function is always for performing a particular task. So performing the task, ये responsibility function किसी को नहीं देता, लेकिन हाँ input लेने का या फिर result को print करने का काम वो distribute कर लेता है. So on these basis, these are the four function styles. Now in my next lecture, children, I will discuss a question in which again I will take up an example and will express that function in four different styles. just for the sake of your practice.